Alright, we're going to do a little bit of a photography lesson here. So I have my camera set up. We're here, it's about, I don't know, midnight basically. So the sun has gone down. There's no light here other than some residual house light and street lights and stuff. So I'm going to take you guys through the process of taking pictures at night, taking pictures of stars. And there's a couple things you need to know about the camera first. Basically there's three things. Two of them kind of act the way that your eye does. So there's shutter speed, there's the aperture, and then there's ISO or ISO, depending on how you want to say it. So the first thing, shutter speed, is basically a mirror that's inside the camera, and it lifts up to reveal the sensor and then back down. So the click that you hear, I'll just, as an example, just take a picture. That noise, what you hear, is actually the mirror lifting up and going back down. So you can change the speed of that and get different effects, and we're going to show an example of that tonight. So if you're outside and it's really, really bright, you're not going to really want to open up the mirror for very long and let in a bunch of light because it's so bright. You're going to want to take a really quick picture, so it's going to be a really quick snap kind of thing. The next thing is the aperture, and that's just basically the eye of the camera that controls how, kind of like shutter speed, how much light gets to the sensor. Now that works kind of like your eye. If shutter speed is like how quickly you blink, the aperture is kind of the middle part of your eye, that when you walk outside in a bright summer's day and you're squinting and your pupil gets really, really small, it's so bright that your eye is trying to not collect as much light. But when we're out here at night, you want to open up your eyes as wide as you can, and your pupils get really, really big because it's trying to collect all the light. That's kind of like aperture. So here at night, we want to open it up and get it wide as possible so it collects as much light in as possible. And with shutter speed, we're also trying to collect as much light as possible as well. So we want a really slow shutter speed. So I'm actually going to take a photo here for 30 seconds. The whole mirror is going to come up and hold there for 30 seconds, let all the light come in, and then go back down. And so those are the first two things. The other thing is ISO. That's basically how sensitive the sensor is. So if I have my ISO set at the lowest, well, my camera it's 100, that means it's least sensitive, but the quality is the best. If I increase the ISO and go higher to say like 2500, usually for night photos I'm at 2500, it lets in more light in the sense that it makes the sensor more sensitive, but you're sacrificing quality. That's when you get, photos get like really grainy. If you've ever taken a photo inside and it's been really, really grainy, your camera is bumping up the ISO to compensate for the lack of not enough available light. So those are the three things. We're going to use all three of those things when we take our photos tonight. And the first thing I'm going to do, Miki, if you want to come around here this way, I'm going to show you. Now obviously it's going to be really, really hard to see, but I'm just going to walk you through the process. Now the first thing I want to make sure is that I'm in focus. So obviously it's dark, you can't see anything. How am I going to focus on anything? I usually like to use the things around me. So I'm going to find this street light that's it's not, I guess it's a house light that's way, way over there. And I'm going to kind of zoom in on my screen back here, and I'm just going to manually, see right now it's out of focus, and I can kind of choose. And it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. You just want to use your eye as best as you can and get it as close as possible. That's generally how I do it, and I try and pick a spot that has a light off in the distance where I can choose my focus. So now that I have my focus, I'm going to not take a video. I'm going to put it back to picture mode, and when I have the camera taking a picture for 30 seconds, if you've ever taken a picture and it's been blurry, that's because the camera has moved while the camera's taking a picture, so you have movement. And since it's going to be taking a picture for 30 seconds, any little bit of movement can cause a bit of camera shake. So generally what we do when we take night photos is actually use a trigger, so we don't have to touch the camera at all, because even me pressing down the button can cause the camera to move a little bit. So I'm actually going to plug this in and eventually stand way away from it so I don't touch it, and just use this trigger to take the photo. So as far as settings go, we want to choose the best possible settings to allow the most amount of light in. And we're going to use those three things that I talked about earlier. The first thing is shutter speed, and I said I want to take a really, really long picture, so I'm going to set that for 30 seconds. The next thing is the aperture. I want it to be as wide as possible. So in this specific lens that I have, the widest I can go and the lowest f-stop I can get is 4. So I'm going to leave it at 4. The ISO or ISO, I'm going to, like I said earlier, I like to keep it around 2500. It depends on the moon. Right now the moon's not out at all, so I'll probably have to increase my ISO a little bit more. If the moon's out, it provides a little bit more light. You can drop down your ISO a little bit. So there's a lot of trial and error. You have to kind of take a few test photos and decide and play around. It's a lot of fun. It requires patience. But generally that's my settings that I'm going to use, and we're going to take a test photo and try it out, and then Mika's going to try it on his camera. So, all right. Kale, I'm going to get you to shut off that light if you don't mind. Alright. Alright, I'm going to... There. So if you heard that click, that's the mirror going up. There's a red light on the back, and that red light's going to stay on for 30 seconds. And then the next sound you'll hear is the mirror or shutter coming down, and then that's the completion of the photo, and the light will turn off, and then we can look at the photo and see what it looks like and change any of the 3 settings to get better results. I can see a plane up there moving, so since I'm taking a photo for 30 seconds and it's capturing all of the light, that plane's going to look like it's going to look like dots kind of following each other in the sky because it's blinking. So if I review it on the back here, obviously it's going to be really hard to see on Mika's camera, but I'll give him the photo and he can maybe edit it in or something.
I won't.
That looks cool.
So if I zoom way in, there's that plane in a line that I talked about, and it's really, really bright because in the background of those trees is actually the lights of Charlottetown. So it's a good example of being a little bit too close to the city, actually. So we're actually going to turn the camera the opposite way and shoot away from the city lights and see what we get there. So let's all turn around and we'll try this again. Alright, so we have a photo looking the other way. As you can see, the sky changed pretty dramatically. It's not as bright. There's no city lights over there, so it's just allowing a little bit more of the light from the stars to come through on the sensor and on the camera. So we're definitely shooting in the right direction now. And then we can just go from here and change a couple of settings. And so those are the 2 examples. We're going to set up Mika's camera now and see what he gets.